So this is for Infinity QX56 2011. So I think they changed it to a QX80 in like 2014 or 15, something like that. Nissan Patrol, Y62, 16 and up Armadas, 5.6 liter V8 with variable valve timing and direct injection. So the transmission filter is not actually filter, it's just a screen, just a wire mesh. You don't need to actually replace it, but what you do need to do is remove all the bolts here, take it off and clean it, because in behind it's just wire mesh. That's all it is, really fine mesh. So I use a really strong parts cleaner, which is like an aerosol can. You just spray it backwards and a bunch of metal shavings and stuff that came out of this and ended up where I was dumping it all. But the screen obviously stopped that from going into the trans. When you're doing it, these bolts right here, these here are longer. 1, 2, 3, 4 are longer than all the other ones. This one here is the only short one. So when you get the bolts out, remember, separate them. This, and this one are long. This one's short. And the rest of them are all the same length. My fluid was pretty bad. I don't think anything's ever done to this. Has about 179,000 kilometers on it. I drive the living hell out of it. That's a fluid. After it settled, it would look really bad last night coming out. That's another thing too. I also let it sit all night. I got about another liter out of it. And when I was draining it, I got most of it out of the pan. It was just a steady little tiny stream. Then I turned the engine on for a quick second and turn it off, and it just gets a little more of the converter. You want to get as much of this out as possible. I'm probably going to do this a couple times before I'll be able to ascertain that the fluid's actually changed in the whole transmission, because converter holds probably 2 or 3 liters alone. Not to mention any coolers and lines and all that stuff. So just remember, take that off. I use the impact to remove it. Nice Milwaukee impact, but I don't use that to actually tighten them. I put them in very loosely, just until it touches, and I stop with the impact. I don't do any more. And then I just do it by hand, just get them snug. There's no gasket on that, it's just a pressure fit. Here there's a paper gasket, which mine stayed on. So I'm kind of lucky about that. I'm cleaning it and trying to clean it, and I just put a tiny bit of silicone on the pan itself. I try and keep all this off here. Just put a tiny bit of silicone on the pan itself because I want to keep that clean. And this is the stuff I use. Not sure if you have this where you are, but that's the French side and that's the English side. This stuff's very strong, very strong. It'll melt some plastic, so you gotta be careful, but it's definitely good for cleaning out the screen filter because it cuts through the grease very quickly. It's much stronger than normal brake clean by far. So we come over here. Maybe you can see some stuff here, I'm not sure, in the pan. These are brand new pans. You can see there's a bunch of glitter in there. See all the glitter. Tons of glitter. So the biggest problem why you can't just do a drain while it's sitting in the vehicle. Some people, they take this out. Well, I wouldn't even do that till last because you're gonna make a mess. You take this one out. The problem is it sits higher, so you still miss probably a good 1.5 liters of fluid sitting in here, and that's the dirtiest part. So you need to remove the pan to do this properly. You gotta take the magnets off, clean it. I took this thing into the shop sink and cleaned it really good. Just got a little film. It's just tacky where I want it. Little film of silicone on here. You don't want a lot. And then you can install it. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start it up, run it through all the gears really quick. Just put my foot on the brake, just run through the gears really quick. Put it in neutral. And while it's in neutral, I'm going to check the fluid level with this one here. That's when you do it. You don't do it with the engine off because the fluid obviously rides. Converter's not holding its all of the fluid that it should be. So if you do it with it off, you're going to be down way too low on fluid. So keep that in mind. Hopefully it works out for you. Stay tuned, I'll be doing more stuff. So far this thing's about 450 horsepower. Got some cold air intake and stuff going on. Got headers coming. Gonna do a full exhaust. I'm on about 500 horsepower. This thing right now runs about 14.0 in the quarter mile, roughly 98.5 miles an hour. That was with the train to give me some issues, so I'm trying to get into 13s, which is basic bolt-ons, and it's pretty damn close. So yeah, stay tuned. So this is how I'm doing. I'm gonna make sure the engine and everything is level. Put a level right on the rockers. I figure that's the closest thing I can get. And then I just got this 1/4-inch hose here. It was from a water meth injection, but it's just like standard 1/4-inch hard air line. I got that into a 1/4-inch ID tube. And then I just heat it up a little bit so it puts a little bend on it. And then let it cool down with the water in the sink. Just use hot water and then cold water. And we just stick this up there. Just like that. And that way the tube goes in over to here and it doesn't just pour and run right back down. It's better to do this and have it sealed because you can't tell when it's full if it's running. So I'm gonna start by putting in like 4 or 5 liters, and then I'm gonna start it up, and as soon as it starts coming out here, I'll know to start it up, and then I continue putting more in. We got everything installed here. I'll be right back. So a little update on the transmission fluid flush change on these. It's gonna be toward the end of the video. I've done the change. It takes about 4 or 5 flushes. You only get about 5 liters out every time you do it, every time you remove the fluid. There's no point in replacing the filter that they call it because it's just a metal screen. So I just unscrewed it. The bolts that go into the valve body, I unscrewed that as I showed in the start of this video. You clean it out really well, and then you keep the pan dropped, clean the pan really well obviously, reinstall it. That's the very first thing you do. So now I'm on about 4 or 5 of these. And the fluid just starting to go on the last one there, the fluid was just starting to look red, like clean looking. So now I know it's the first one, even though the transmission shift is so much better. We will see here these shifts, it bangs them off pretty good. Let's see if I make this turn here. So it just kind of bangs them off. You don't even feel them anymore. Whereas before, I'd do a lot more hanging. I haven't had a problem with the converter fluttering from lockup. I haven't had to do that since the last fluid change. But you cannot do just one fluid change on this and think it's good. You gotta do at least 4 or 5. Like I'm on my 4th or 5th one now, I believe. The first one I did it though, I overfilled it by about 4 liters and started up and ran it through the gears just really quickly. Then I drained it, the mount out until it was at a proper level. Just to help get the first one more diluted. And then they've been black, like the first one was just black, second one was pretty black. The last one I just did was starting to look red, and now if I do this one again, which I'm going to, another week or so, I'm going to drive this for a bit longer, and it'll be the 5th. I think this will be the 5th one coming up. And I'm going to drop the pan again. I only dropped the pan for the first one, and then it's going to be the last one here I'm going to be doing. I'm going to drop the pan again, clean the screen, anything in the bottom of the pan. Do one more fluid change in it, because the whole system holds about 10 liters it's supposed to, 10 to 10.5 liters. You only get about 5 out. The converter probably holds at least 5. So keep all that in mind. Make sure you use the right fluid. It seems to be really good. Mine had an issue before where I'd smack on it. I'll try and do it here. I'll put her in 4 high just so I don't spin. But before, when I'd smack on it, doing a run or something like that, it'd skip and it would felt like it was losing fluid pressure and shit. It doesn't do that anymore. It's just nice and clean. 0-60 on this is about 5.5 seconds. I've got about 5.7 out of it before the fluid change with it skipping. But like that it just goes through the shift so nicely there. And the fastest way to run these is you have to manually shift it. If you leave it in drive, especially, I've done a few things to this now, it's still naturally aspirated with about 450 at the crank. The transmission can't keep up. It misses every single shift if you leave it in drive because it's not programmed for that much horsepower to accelerate that quickly through the gears. It's just not programmed for it, so it misses every shift. manually shift it and bang at rate of 6 grand, you'll save about 2 or 3 tenths in the quarter mile on this thing, which is pretty huge. And this transmission fluid change has been a massive difference in the transmission. Before, like I said, I could feel it shift. You can't even really tell it shifts now. If it didn't have the exhaust on, I wouldn't even know it was shifting. But before, you could definitely tell. Like, it would kind of hang the gears a little bit, and the converter would sit there and go like, see if I can get to unlock the converter in a gear and kind of do what it does. So it would kind of just like do like this before. And I see that's a big problem on these, and people do 1 fluid change. That's not enough. You gotta do like 4 or 5, because you never get all that fluid out. You gotta clean it properly. I'm also debating on my last one dropping the valve body out of it, which is a little bit more involved for most people, but I've rebuilt many transmissions in my day. I'm thinking about dropping the valve body on and going through the entire valve body and just cleaning, because there's going to be crud in the valve body. So if you're very mechanically inclined and able to put back check balls and all that, whatever's in there, haven't gone through it yet, then that's definitely something that would be a good spot to start. But it totally changed how this thing drives. It's like a whole new vehicle. You can't even tell it shifts. I'll try and get another one here. I got turned. It's kind of a bad spot, so I'm probably going to have to hit it pulling out here. And I'm going to have to leave it in drive because I won't be able to shift and turn at the same time. Definitely make sure you do all the fluid changes. Make sure it's level. What I was doing for the last few, once you do the first one, you get it set the right amount of fluid, then I just tip it back at the front of the vehicle up on wheel stands, up on wheel ramps, leave the back down, and just remove the rear drain plug first. Let it all drain out. Let it drain out for like 2 hours. You get about another liter out of it. First, just letting it drain until it goes to a small stream, and then put the plug in it. So you want to let it drain for a few hours here. Hang on a second. Like, see, it just bangs the shifts. Like, they're just so quick and crisp. You don't even feel them. You can't even feel the shifts. And then just lock converter. Usually right there where it goes to lock that converter on that 7th gear, it would really hunt. It would go up and down, up and down, up and down for like 15-20 seconds. And there was a lot of little junk in there, and the screen, it's a mesh. It's a very fine wire mesh, but particles can still get through, and guaranteed they get in the valve body, and they're holding valves open, and probably somewhat blocking the servos or the solenoids. But this thing right now, it runs, before I did the fluid change, it went 14.0 at 98.5 miles an hour in a quarter mile. And it really has an intake, basic exhaust. I gutted the cats. Let's see here. See if it misses 4th. Doesn't like this hill. There we go. I have an issue sometimes when I'm accelerating really hard and there's a hill coming up. It's like the sensor can tell. The radar up front, it will not let me shift to 4th. I go to shift to 4th and it just beeps. It will not let me shift to 4th. Like, it's trying to limit my speed because it sees something coming up. But you can see that accelerated pretty well. Like, it's pretty decently quick for what it is. It's 6,000 pounds, right? So I can definitely recommend gutting the cat, save 0.2 off the quarter mile, which isn't massive, but it is something. Mile per hour, coincidentally, did not increase that much, which shows there wasn't a lot of high top-end power change, because I believe the manifolds themselves are just so restrictive. But on the low end, it definitely made a good improvement. It dropped 0.1 off 0 to 60 as well. But yeah, I'll post another video later on. If you want to message me or something, my YouTube, or not my YouTube, my Instagram is Wild12Valve for my truck. I have a diesel truck I'm going a little crazy with, so if you have any questions or anything, find me on there. I'll put a link in the video here when I post it. definitely have to do it properly, though. I see all these videos, people doing it, and they just do one change and they think it's good enough. You're not anywhere close to being good enough. You still have transmission issues. My transmission issues didn't alleviate themselves until the last fluid change, which was the number 4, I believe it was. So you cannot do one. I'm just trying to stress out to people, do not do one and think it's good. Anyway, stay tuned, everyone. Check back. Probably be some more videos shortly. Feel free to message me.